Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Christina Kent and I'm an artist based out of San Francisco. And today I wanted to talk about an issue that I think affects pretty much all artists and creatives, and that is art block. If you've been making art for a while, you've probably experienced this at some point. Maybe you've been on a pretty good schedule, like making lots of paintings or drawings or sketching a lot, and then all of a sudden one day you get to your studio, you open up your sketchbook, you see the blank page, and then suddenly nothing. No ideas, no inspiration. It's like your well of creativity is just suddenly dry. And for me, like in my creative process, I usually, I'll have my blank canvas, and then oftentimes I paint from photographs that I've taken. So I'll be scrolling through my reference photos, and these are I take a bunch of photos throughout the day of things that inspire me that I think are beautiful, and I think, okay, I'll paint those later. And sometimes I'll open up that album and be just scrolling through all these photos of inspiration, and it's like, nothing sparks even a tiny bit of creativity in me. I just scroll through these photos and I'm thinking I just don't have any ideas. None of these look good to me. And being in a state of creative block can be really, really hard. It can feel like you're in a dark well or out in the cold. I think of it as a desert where there's no creativity. There's none of that life, that creative force that drives you forward and that fills us with joy. And especially if you've been kind of in a really good creative stride and you've been having a lot of good ideas and kind of moving forward with those ideas, once that creative well is sort of turned off, then you can really feel like you've just been abandoned out in the cold, and it can just be really hard to feel that way. Because as artists, we all know how great it feels when you're in the creative flow and you're filled with ideas and you're coming to the canvas and you're making those ideas happen and you're seeing your creativity come to life. I feel like that's what we as artists live for, and there's just nothing better than that feeling. And when we're experiencing creative block, we're totally disconnected from that. But here's the thing, we're humans, we're not machines. We're not going to be creating beautiful and amazing works of art all the time. We're not going to feel completely inspired and at the top of our game all the time. In life, it's natural to have ebbs and flows in our creativity, and this can happen on a daily, weekly, monthly, even yearly basis. So in this video, I want to talk about how I've learned to sort of manage the ebbs and flows of my creativity and how to handle art block when it comes up. So what do I do when I'm feeling blocked? Well, I think the first thing is to figure out what kind of art block you're dealing with, because not all blocks are the same. In my experience, there's two types of art blocks. There's a mild art block and there's an extreme art block. The mild art block is when you're just a little disconnected from your creativity, you don't have as many ideas and the spark just isn't quite there. Versus the severe art block is when you're completely exhausted, you're completely worn out, and you just kind of feel at the end of your rope. I've experienced the extreme form a few times. Often it happens if I'm having a big medical issue. For example, when I got COVID several years ago and it was really bad and I had a horrible fever and things like that, in the recovery from that, I felt this really extreme art block where I really just felt like I had no creativity left in me. I think this can also be brought on by extreme life events or big changes. For example, if I move from one place to another, that can be really, really exhausting. And for me, that can trigger one of these extreme feelings of art block. So I would say if you're in that situation where you are just feeling completely drained, you're exhausted, you just want to sleep all the time, maybe you're trying to recover from some health emergency, this is a situation, this is not a mild art block. That's an extreme situation where you want to give your body rest, you want to focus on improving your health, giving your body what it needs, and also I think it's important to protect our mental health in these situations. So do whatever self-care you need to get better, to bring your mindset into a more positive place, and also if it means getting therapy or talking to other people for help, that's really important. So I would say for those extreme art block situations, focus on that. This video is not going to be covering all of that, but I just wanted to recognize that that sometimes art block can be really extreme, and that's just something that we need to be aware of. So in this video, I'm going to be talking more about the strategies for the mild form of art block. It's just when you go to create, maybe things are in your life are going pretty well, but for whatever reason, you go to create and you're trying to make something and the ideas just aren't flowing. You just feel disconnected from your creativity. Nothing seems like a good idea. Maybe you even try to paint a little bit or draw a little bit and things just aren't coming out right. That's the sort of art block that I'm going to be covering in this video. So what do I like to do when I'm feeling blocked? Well, the first thing I like to do is to take a break and kind of either do things to fill the well and kind of break me out of my usual way of seeing things. I think sometimes we can get really stuck in our daily routines doing the same thing over and over again, and I think that can really stifle our creativity. For some people, routines are really supportive of their creativity. So if you're one of those people, go full steam ahead with your routine. But if you're more like me, you might want to spice up the routine a little bit, shake things up if you're feeling disconnected from your creativity. For me, the best way to break up my routine and start seeing things in a new way is to just get outside. This can be a really small scale, so just going on a walk around my neighborhood, or it can be a larger scale, maybe going on a full day hike somewhere in the mountains that I've never been to before. I always find that being outside, moving my body, and going to a place where I'm seeing new things can really help stimulate new ideas. It's also great to go somewhere out in nature where you're not on your phone, you're not on the internet, and you're kind of disconnected from all of the sort of chaos of social media and the news and all these other things that are competing for our attention. Another important thing to do if you're feeling art block is to recognize that this is completely normal. I mean, like I said, we're not machines. We can't expect our creativity to just be on it 100% all the time. We're humans, and our energies, our thoughts, these have their natural ebbs and flows. I don't think there's a single artist on earth who can say that they've never felt art block. And recognizing that it's a normal thing, I think for me really helps me just not panic when I'm having these feelings, because it can be hard, like when you're feeling really inspired and then all of a sudden those feelings of inspiration disappear. I think that when I was younger, I would start to panic and think, oh, I'm never gonna feel inspired again. The ideas are not gonna come back. But now I've gone through this cycle enough times that I know, okay, I'm just in a period where my creativity is a little lower than usual. I'm a little more disconnected than usual. And I know it's gonna come back because it always does. Not only that, but reading experiences of other artists or listening to podcasts where artists talk about their experiences with art block, I think that really just helps normalize the whole experience. And it makes me think that, okay, this is something that all of the artists go through. It also takes away those feelings. Like sometimes when I would feel art block, I would kind of feel like, oh, why me? Like I would have some self-pity and wonder why it was happening to me. But then when I realized like, oh, it seems like this is a normal thing that happens to all artists, it became a lot easier for me to accept, and then I could move past it. So if you are feeling art block right now, know that you are in very good company. We have all felt it. Just don't panic and it will pass. Another thing that I like to do when I'm feeling art block is to look at my old work, because oftentimes when I'm feeling art block, I'll start to think that everything that I'm making isn't any good. And I'll be thinking, oh, you know, these paintings they really miss the mark. They're not good paintings. In fact, none of my paintings are good. But then I'll look back at my work and I'll remind myself that, well, actually, when I was making these paintings, I thought they were really good. And in fact, these paintings, like some of my paintings have been purchased by people or they're in gallery shows. And so I'll remind myself that I'll kind of try to embody the mindset that I was in when I was initially making the work and how happy I felt about it. So I think back to these times when I was feeling more inspired, and I'll look at the work that I made then, and I'll think to myself, okay, the work itself has not changed over time. It's the same painting. Like the paintings that I'm looking at now are the same one when I'm feeling blocked, are the same ones that I was looking at when I was feeling great. So really, it's not because the paintings didn't change. To me, that signifies that the only thing that changed is my mindset. And so going through that thought process helps me think that, well, maybe the mindset that I'm looking through now isn't the most objective way of looking at things. Maybe there is a brighter way to see things. Because I think one of the mistakes that we can often make when we're feeling art block is thinking that the way that we see the world now is correct. And not only that it's correct, but that it's going to extend that way to the foreseeable future. So for me, I like to confront myself with evidence that, well, I used to think differently in the past. And then that reminds me that, well, if I was feeling good about my art in the past, then more likely than not, I'll feel good about it again in the future. Another thing I like to do when I'm feeling blocked is to focus more on the practice of art rather than making like quote unquote art. There is so much value in putting the pen to paper or putting the brush to canvas and making something, whether or not you're feeling inspired. Because the act of making something, even if you're not feeling inspired, I think that still trains your body and it trains your brain. You're building muscle memory, you're trying new things, you're keeping your skills sharp, even if it doesn't result in a beautiful painting. A long time ago, I heard someone mention the concept of brush mileage, and it's this idea that it's not about how do you become a good painter? It's not about making every painting a masterpiece, but it's about putting in the brush mileage, literally painting miles and miles of canvas with your brush. It points back to this idea of quantity over quality, and how if you focus on creating a large quantity of work, the quality will eventually follow. So then when I'm feeling blocked, when I'm feeling uninspired, then I'll tell myself, okay, well today I'm just gonna build brush mileage. I'm not gonna make good work, but I'll make work, and that's gonna contribute towards my progress. And interestingly enough, if I focus on building the brush mileage, sometimes I start painting and then I actually get into the flow of it and I start feeling a lot better and things work out even better than expected. Now, not always, sometimes I start painting and literally every brush stroke is just painful and falling in exactly the wrong place. So it's not guaranteed, but sometimes doing that enough, just getting started is enough to get me out of that block. Okay, but now you might be wondering, okay, so I'm on board with this brush mileage thing, or just, making the work, making any work, but I still have no ideas. What do I do? And for these moments, I think it's great to have some exercises that you can do in your back pocket for when you're really feeling uninspired. For example, if I'm completely out of inspiration, one of the things I'll do is go into my fridge, grab a piece of fruit or a vegetable, stick it on a table, and just paint that. Is it gonna be my best painting? Is it gonna be a masterpiece? Probably not, but it's gonna keep me painting, and that's the important part. Creating simple exercises that you can do when you're feeling uninspired are a great way to continue your momentum so that when you do feel inspiration again, you'll be ready to take hold of it. When you're doing these practices, don't worry if they're good or bad. Just focus on doing the thing. Make these practices more about building skill than making a great work of art. Another thing that I like to do when I'm feeling uninspired is to copy an artist that I really like. I'll do a color study copy where either I'll do it very small in my sketchbook or I'll just get a small canvas or sheet of paper, and I'll take an artist's work that I really enjoy and just try to study what were the colors that they use, what was the composition that they used, and try to make a little thumbnail version of my own version of their painting. Once again, an exercise like this, it keeps you painting or it keeps you making the work, but it shifts the focus away from you having to have a great inspired idea, and it just takes away that need entirely and focuses more on building skills and learning. And that's the awesome thing about making art. You don't have to feel inspired to build your skills and to learn new things. You can do these things even on the days when you're not feeling inspired. I believe that inspiration likes to find us working. I think it's a lot easier to pick inspiration back up if you are at the easel, you're at your canvas, you're making the work, even if it's not work that you're inspired about. But if you are using your brush, you're using your pencil, I think you're gonna start getting those creative gears turning again so that you can get back into the flow of creating. So those are the main things I like to do when I'm feeling blocked. And I think, in summary, it basically comes down to recognizing that art block is a normal thing, that everyone experiences some creative blocks, that our creativity will ebb and flow over time, and that's totally okay. And I think the important part, if you're experiencing a more minor creative block, is to just keep making things, keep learning, keep growing, keep practicing your skills, and eventually the creativity and the inspiration will come back to you. Okay, but now I want to hear from you. What are your favorite tips to get out of a creative block? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're experiencing creative block right now, I hope you can try some of these tips and let me know if they're helpful for you. And remember, don't worry, your creative block isn't gonna last forever. And just as a quick note, this video isn't sponsored by anyone, but if you want to support my work, you can purchase my paintings on my website below, you can join my Patreon, or you can share this video with a friend. All of these things really help. And I just want to say thank you to all of my supporters on Patreon. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for supporting this channel and making these videos happen. If you like my art, if you like my videos, and you want to help me make more, check out my Patreon at the link below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.